Welcome to Contours of Our Soul and Beyond. Why do we compare ourselves to others? And why others compare themselves to us? That's what I want to talk about today. If finding yourself again is the journey, comparison is often the roadblock that keeps pulling you backwards. It's strange, isn't it? The moment we begin healing, we start looking around instead of looking within. We ask questions. We ask questions like, why are they so much further ahead? Why did they find love before I did? Why does life seem so effortless while mine feels like survival? But we rarely stop to ask a different question. What am I not seeing? Comparison has always been an illusion built on incomplete information. We compare our private battles to someone else's public victories. We compare our worst chapter to someone's carefully edited, highlighted reel. We compare our beginning to someone else's middle. And then we wonder why we feel this way. The truth is, most people are carrying weights you'll never see. The happiest smile may have been practiced in front of a mirror after hours of crying. The strongest person in the room may simply be the one who has learned to hide their exhaustion. The loudest laughter can sometimes be the echo of the deepest loneliness. We were never meant to measure our worth against someone else's journey, because every life asks a different question. Every soul carries a different lessons. Every heart breaks differently. Imagine asking a fish to climb a mountain while asking an eagle to swim in the bottom of the ocean. Think about that for a while. Neither one is a failure. They're simply being judged by the wrong standards. Yet exactly that's how what we do to ourselves. We compare personalities, careers, relationships, bodies, money, intelligence, beauty, popularity, success, as through life was a single race with one finish line. But it isn't. Life is millions of different paths crossing each other for a brief moments before continuing in different directions. There's no universal timeline. I truly believe that. No master schedule. No cosmetic deadline saying by 30 you must have this. By 40 you must become that. By 50 you should finally feel complete. No, it doesn't work like that. Those expectations were written by people just as uncertain as we are. Comparison quietly convinces us that our value is earned through achievement. But your value existed long before your accomplishments. A newborn child has done nothing, built nothing, earned nothing, yet we know that child, and we love that child, and we know its worth. Somewhere along the way, we forget that truth about ourselves. We begin believing our humanity needs constant justifications, and that belief is exhausting. But comparison doesn't only happen in one direction. Sometimes I didn't understand for a long time is that people are comparing themselves to you. Sometimes the criticism you receive has very little to do with your flaws. Sometimes it begins with someone else's insecurity. Have you ever noticed how certain people become uncomfortable when you're simply being yourself? I've had a lot of that. Not because I've done something wrong, but because your authenticity reminds them of the parts themselves they've abandoned. Your confidence might remind them of their own fear. Your peace might expose their chaos. Your discipline might quietly confront their excuses. Your kindness may reveal their bitterness. And instead of asking, what can I learn from this person? Some people ask, how can I make them smaller? Not because they hate you, but because shrinking you feels easier than growing themselves. That is one of the oldest human instincts. When we feel inadequate, we either become inspired or threatened. There's very little in between. This doesn't excuse hurtful behavior. I'm not here to excuse it, but it explains some of it. People often criticize in others what they secretly struggle to accept within themselves. The person obsessed with appearances might secretly fear they're not enough. The person constantly competing may never have learned that love isn't something you win. The person that tears you down may have spent years believing that's the only way to feel tall. Pain has a way of distinguishing itself as ignorance. Fear often dresses itself as judgment and insecurity, and surprisingly, creativity, it knows how to wear confidence like a costume. One of the greatest freedoms in life comes when you realize this. You don't always have to participate in the invisible competitions that no one announced. You don't have to prove your intelligence, your beauty, your success, your kindness, your worth. You simply have to become more honest than you were yesterday. That's enough. Comparison also steals something even more precious than joy. It steals gratitude. When we're busy counting someone else's blessings, we stop noticing our own. We forget the friendships we've built, the obstacles we've survived, the quiet mornings we prayed for, the strength we've earned through heartbreak, the wisdom we've gained through failure. We become blind to miracles because they no longer look impressive beside someone else's life. But miracles were never meant to compete. A seed doesn't compete with a flower. It simply grows when it's ready. Nature understands something we often forget as humans. Nothing blooms all year. Even the tallest trees spend seasons looking lifeless before spring quietly reminds them who they are. Why do we expect ourselves to be different? Why? Why do we shame ourselves for resting, for grieving, for rebuilding? Healing is not a straight line. Growth is not always visible. Sometimes the deepest transformations happens underground, where no applause. Roots grow in darkness before branches ever reach the light. Perhaps that's why some of our most important seasons feel so lonely. No one celebrates roots. Everyone notices flowers. But flowers cannot exist without what happened beneath the surface. So, if your life feels quiet right now, maybe you're growing roots. If your progress feels invisible, maybe something stronger than success is being built. You never know. Character is being built, wisdom, patience, the things comparison can never measure. There's another kind of comparison we rarely discuss. Comparing who we are today with who we used to be. Sometimes that's healthy. It reminds us how far we've become, but sometimes we become prisoners of our own past. We miss the vision of ourselves who trusted easily, who laughed freely, who believed everyone meant well. We grieve that innocence. Yet perhaps we aren't meant to become who we once were. Perhaps healing isn't turning to the old version of ourselves. Perhaps it's becoming someone who carries the same kindness with greater wisdom, the same love with healthier boundaries, the same hope with clearer eyes. That isn't losing yourself, it's evolving. The goal was never to become better than someone else. The goal was always to become more deeply yourself. Because there will always be, there will never be another person who can live your exact story. How amazing is that? Imagine, think of that for a moment. There's nobody else who can live exactly the exact story you're living. Think the exact thoughts, feel the exact emotions, offer your exact perspective to the world. So comparisons ask, how do I measure against them? Purpose asks, what am I here to give? One question creates anxiety. Another creates meaning. So the next time comparison quietly enters your mind, pause. Instead of asking why someone else's life looks different, ask what your own life is trying to teach you. Instead of asking why someone else has more, ask whether you're honoring what you've already been given. Instead of shrinking because someone shines, remember this: the sun never competes with the moon. The ocean never envies the mountains. Spring never apologizes because autumn exists. Creation doesn't compare. It simply fulfills its purpose. And perhaps that's our invitation too, to stop measuring, to stop performing, to stop chasing lives that were never meant to be ours, and instead to become so deeply rooted in who we are that someone else's success no longer feels like our failures. Because your path was designed to look like theirs. Well, it was never designed to look like theirs. It was designed to reveal you. And there's nothing more extraordinary than a person who finally stops trying to become everyone else and has the courage to become themselves. I'll leave you with that. Thank you for tuning in, and school.